Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Canelo Alvarez tells Hamza Sheeraz and Usyk Iglesias to fight for the chance to face him. However, the Mexican star doesn't believe that even holding a world title makes you a worthy opponent, with the likes of Hamza Sheeraz, the WBO super middleweight champion, and Usyk Iglesias, the IBF champion. After their shots against one of the best fighters of this generation, Alvarez wants them to do something that stands out. Like fight each other. I think they need to fight each other, and then I fight the winner, Alvarez said on the Mr. Versace podcast. That's the most smart thing they can do.
And he's right.
He is.
I mean, Canelo Alvarez has already fought his fair share of world champions across 4 weight classes to where simply holding a title isn't enough anymore.
We all need to earn what we deserve, and they need to earn it. I'm not saying they don't deserve it, they deserve it. That's why they are champions, or number 1, or whatever. But they need to fight each other, and then after my fight, we'll see. Iglesias 15-0 with 14 KOs is ranked number 2 by the ring at super middle, while Sheeraz, 23-0 with 1 draw and 19 knockouts, sits at number 9.
And for a perspective, Canelo Alvarez isn't asking these 2 champions to do anything that he wouldn't have already done himself.
Because he has done it himself. He fought Gennady Golovkin at middleweight and Daniel Jacobs afterwards, unifying titles. At super middle, he fought everybody that had a belt, so that when he tells these 2 champions to unify, he's speaking from experience, not the sidelines.
He's not asking you guys to do anything that he wasn't prepared to do himself, that he hasn't already done himself. Iglesias, 28, took out Pavel Silyagin in the 8th round to get his hands on the vacant IBF title in April. Sheeraz pummeled Alem Bejic in 2 rounds to win the vacant WBO title this past Saturday in Giza, Egypt. Alvarez, ranked number 1 at super middle by the ring, isn't being thrown in with a soft touch for his first fight back since losing a decision to Terence Crawford and undergoing elbow surgery. The 35-year-old will clash with Christian Mobili on September 12th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, while fighting the winner in a possible future showdown between Sheeraz and Iglesias. Sounds fun. Alvarez wants to focus on the task at hand.
I'm very motivated to come back, Alvarez continued. It's going to be a good fight. He's a dangerous fighter and explosive, but I enjoy that kind of fight.
At least historically he has. I've been saying it on repeat. Christian Mobili presents as the kind of fighter that Canelo normally has his way with. It's not as frustrating as fighting somebody like William Skull, who's moving away from the pocket. Christian tries to crash it. So if Canelo is still the fighter that he used to be, then he should win.
Now, as far as his advice for Hamza Sheeraz and Usyk Iglesias, do I expect them to adhere to his counsel? I think it's an idea.
Yes.
A suggestion that Iglesias might like, but Hamza Sheeraz, not so much. Hamza is in a somewhat stronger position than Usyk Iglesias in the sense that he can go back to the UK, defend that brown belt against some ham and egger, and still make decent money, whereas Usyk Iglesias is even lesser known.
Yeah, he's a champion like Hamza, but not as big a draw, and he's not one of Turkey LL Sheik's favorites like Hamza Sheeraz. I mean, Canelo is telling these guys, hey, fight each other, and then I'll fight the winner, but what if Hamza wants to play it safe until Canelo becomes free, and then Turkey makes Canelo an offer to do that fight? I don't get the impression that Canelo would turn it down.
Separately, there's another unification match that Hamza can have that's more winnable and worth more money. The one with Canelo's stablemate, Jaime Munguia, newly minted WBA champion.
We talked about it just the other day. I think if Hamza had to pick a champion to unify with out of the 2 available champions, he'd go with Jaime before he'd go with Usyk.
And it just so happens that Turkey LL Sheik's running theme for Canelo Alvarez's ring return in September is Mexico versus the world. Well, Jaime Munguia is a Mexican national. So what if you do the fight between him and Hamza on that undercard, and if Hamza wins, you set him up with Canelo?
Sounds like a plan.
Now, separately as it pertains to his stablemate, Canelo Alvarez has said that he hopes to pass the torch to his teammate Jaime Munguia as the next face of Mexican boxing when he retires. An idea that I've bounced around some time ago, that maybe Jaime could become the heir apparent He's got some of the ingredients, but he's lacking in other areas. I mean, being a Mexican national and being within proximity of Canelo, those ingredients are there, but he doesn't have the same ability as Canelo. He's got a very fan-friendly style. You're not going to see Jaime in a boring boxing match.
And depending on who's opposite the ring, you can sell the fight. You could sell Munguia versus Berlanga, Munguia versus Plant, Munguia versus Sheeraz, and maybe that's how they can get started on that. You want to pass the torch to Jaime, so maybe what Jaime should do is have that fight with Hamza Sheeraz, unify those titles.
One thing I've constantly reminded people when it comes to becoming a big draw, becoming the face of boxing, is everybody that did it had a great opponent selection. Lots of people around to make for great fights, whether it was Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, or Canelo Alvarez after him. They were always in divisions where there were lots of great fights to make. It just so happens that Jaime is in that position at super middle.
There are lots of great fights to make with the fighters anywhere in between 160 and 168 when you figure that Carlos Adames is set to move up in the not-so-distant future. At some point, Yanni Bekalim Kanalai might join him. These two guys represent potential opponents for Jaime.
So tell me, boxing fan, if they put Jaime in the ring with either of those guys, you wouldn't want to watch it? And what about the guys that are right there at 168? Not just Hamza and not just Iglesias, but what about Caleb Plant? What about Edgar Berlanga, Bektemir Melenkuziev, Kevin Lele Sajo, Christian Mabili? Even if Canelo ends up beating him in September, I could still go for Mabili versus Munguia after that.
Lester the Molester Martinez.
And so you see what I mean. To really become a big draw, and perhaps the face of boxing, you need the opponent selection. You need to be in a division where there are lots of good fights around to make.
168 is such a division. I often describe it as one of the deepest, if not the deepest division in men's boxing. More than 154, certainly more than 147.
Some of the ingredients are there for Jaime Munguia to, if nothing else, continually fight in big fights that captivate the audience. Though whether or not he can become the face, that's something else. Canelo Alvarez wants him to. He wants to pass him the torch.
Because he's still the face.
Canelo is the one who would have to.
The real story was, one of my friends was in Courchevel, and he, Jake Paul, and maybe he say, oh, I'm a friend of Canelo, whatever. And I was with my little daughter, and I saw the FaceTime of my friend, and I just answered, and was Jake Paul there with him. So, and he started talking, oh, I respect you and this and that, and I have nothing against you too, right? I don't really care about anything. So, and he say, my friend starts saying 200 million, 200 million, 200 million, and I just say anything because I don't really care about that fight, really. And I don't say anything, I just laugh and I say, no, I respect you too, and I have nothing against you, and that's it. That's the story. That's the story. But I think, look, what I realized that in every single event, they need to talk about me to sell tickets and pay-per-view. Every fight is other fights there, and they always talk about Canelo and this, and I want to fight Canelo, and because they don't sell tickets, they don't sell pay-per-views, they need to mention my name, and I think Jake Paul don't sell so much tickets for the fight he have with his company, or I don't know, and that's why he bring that situation, that 200 million. But look, it's fine. I just laugh. I'm not worried about anything.
Whether or not Canelo Alvarez was tooting his own horn and being somewhat arrogant doesn't make what he said any less true. Everybody still brings him up because he's still the face. That's what the recent Forbes list shows.
He is still the top-earning boxer in all of boxing, and Jake Paul, who we mentioned, is a very distant second. Jake Paul, who's now set his sights on a potential Canelo Alvarez fight, claiming that he's got $200 million for that guy.
But Canelo doesn't care. I remember in that brief instance, that moment in time where people really thought that Canelo was going to do a waltz with Jake Paul, they were already laying into him, lambasting him, criticizing him for fighting in a circus fight.
Except he never did it. He instead went into a multi-fight deal with Turkey LL Sheik to fight real boxers in real boxing matches. I don't think Canelo gets enough credit for that.
They were so quick to criticize him that when Gervonta Davis ended up doing what they thought Canelo was going to do,
You saw the energy shift. You saw the energy change.
they who were criticizing Canelo Alvarez were not criticizing Gervonta Davis for trying to do the same thing. And he actually reached an agreement, and his fight with Jake Paul was made. Whereas with Canelo, it was just a blurb.
It was never real.
Now, you've got all these different guys, anywhere in between 168 all the way up to Cruiser, still mentioning Canelo Alvarez because it's the way he says it is. They've got to mention him to sell their fights. It's their only means of promotion.
He's still the face. For so many years now, they've been trying to convince you that it's somebody else. I remember some years ago they tried to convince you Errol Spence Jr. had usurped him as the face of boxing. Then it was Gervonta Davis. Now it's supposed to be David Benavidez.
None of which are putting up the numbers with their fights that he is still putting up with his.
None of which are generating the revenue that he does. None of which are earning what he is earning. But they keep trying to convince you that it's somebody else and it's not him.
The numbers don't tell that story. And this is a numbers game. First thing anybody seems to do when they win a belt is start calling out Canelo Alvarez. I don't think they'd be doing that if he weren't the face.
You know that all it's going to take for him to do is beat Christian Mabili, and he is back, fully back in the mix of everything, dominating the American market, dominating the sport.
It was never a requisite that you be perfect or have an unbeaten, unblemished record to be one of the best fighters all around in the entirety of boxing. He wins that fight with Christian Mabili. He's back on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list and in the top 5.
He's already a more accomplished fighter than Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, Bam Rodriguez.
Let him win that fight in September, and he's back on the list within the top 5. As it pertains to what is another top 5 pound-for-pound fighter, former promoter Alex Krassyuk thinks Usyk should retire after witnessing Usyk's surprisingly shaky performance Saturday night against kickboxer Rico Verhoeven at the Pyramids of Giza in Egypt. The head of K2 Promotions called for him to hang up the gloves. If I were there to advise him, his next opponent would be his family matters, maybe his business issues, Krassyuk told Boxing King Media. That's what he has to take care of now. He has to stop. It's better to leave 1 hour before than 2 minutes after. Unfortunately, this is the truth. It concerns not just boxing, it concerns every single thing in life.
It's sound advice. Better to leave early than before it's too late.
This is a very difficult decision for a man like Usyk, being at the top and being unbeaten, but think of the future. So, from the bottom of my heart, I wish him to retire at his prime and be remembered in ages as one of the most prominent and greatest fighters of all time. Ukraine's Usyk, 25-0 with 16 KOs. The Ring Magazine, IBF, WBA, and WBC heavyweight champion will turn 40 in January. The former undisputed cruiserweight champion said heading into the Verhoeven fight that he had 2 more ring walks left in him after Saturday. You have to wonder if he still feels that way now?
Agit Kabayel is hot on his trail. Frank Warren, who promotes him, says it's gotta be Kabayel or forfeit the green and gold title. And if Usyk were to retire now, it would make for very poor optics, since people would think he retired to get out of fighting Kabayel. They probably could have said something like that beforehand, before he looks human with Verhoeven, but if he did it, it would have been more understood, whereas now, it would be viewed as dodging a bullet.
Krassyuk said Usyk survived the toughest fight of his career and only had him winning 3 rounds, entering the 11th. One judge had Verhoeven winning 96-94, and 2 had their fight even, 95-95 apiece, before Usyk dropped him and scored a dramatic and controversial stoppage with a second left in the penultimate round. Usyk entered what was considered a mismatch as a 25-1 favorite over a kickboxing legend who had participated in only 1 professional boxing match. Usyk did not look fresh. Krassyuk said he was at the highest weight, 233 pounds, that I ever saw him. But did you see the trend from the previous fight with Dubois and this fight with Rico? The amount of steps he made in the ring significantly declined. He's not taking the best advantage of his footwork in the ring, but he's more concentrated on a harder punch when his feet are loaded into the ground to get more power in the fist. Before this fight, people asked me for the prediction. I told them 100 fights out of 100, Usyk wins. But there is also a place for a miracle, the Lord's will. Thank God this time the miracle did not take place. But the signal has to be detected. And once the signal is detected, the conclusions have to be made. After conclusions are made, the adjustments and improvements have to be done. Otherwise, the tendency, the vector it's taking, is not a good sign for my brother, Alexander.
I mean, listen, Alex Krassyuk has been there with Usyk for ages. Even if he's not there now, that is only a recent development. The circumstances of Alex Krassyuk's departure from Usyk's team still remain somewhat of a mystery. They often call him Usyk's former promoter.
But he was more of a manager when you think about it. When Usyk fights a Tony Bellew or a Derek Chisora and Anthony Joshua 2 times, that was Matchroom promoting those shows. When he fights Tyson Fury or the last Daniel Dubois fight, that was Turkey.
Alex was definitely there on Usyk's behalf, but to say that he was the one promoting him?
It's not exactly accurate in any event. If anybody knows Usyk, Alex knows Usyk, and he can see that he's lost a step. He's sitting on his punches more, going for power. Maybe it's because he's slowing down. The legs, after all, are the first to go.
Weighing in at a career highest of 233, he's not gonna be as light on his feet as he was in previous instances. So it could be that he's lost a step, or it could be that he didn't take Rico seriously. Either one services as an adequate explanation, all pointing to the same thing. Maybe it's time to go.
I want to believe that a better Usyk will show up for the Agit Kabayel fight that is already being negotiated. That's supposed to be Usyk's next fight before the year is out. And I want to believe that it's just that he looked past Rico, he didn't take him seriously, but he will show up better for Agit.
I would like for him to beat Agit Kabayel. If he wins, run it back with Rico and get it right this time. Show the world this guy don't belong in the same ring with you, because the way he looked on Saturday,
it was frightful. I've never seen Alexander Usyk look that bad or lose that many rounds.
I think that would be the ideal way to cap off his career in a sport that is less than ideal most of the time. So many boxers overstay their welcome.
Will Usyk be another?